Hi, everybody. Welcome to Jewish Scroll. My name is Jared. I'm not Jewish, but I'm trying to learn everything that I can about Judaism. There has been some news today in this Iran war. The Houthis from Yemen have decided to join the war. And I'm actually not too surprised. If anything, I'm surprised that it took them this long. I don't know if this is part of a broader strategy to fight against Israel. It's all maybe coordinated between Iran and Hezbollah and in Yemen. I don't know, but they only joined today. So I want to read the news and then show you my spreadsheet that I have where I'm trying to keep track of all the escalations in the conflict that's been going on since October 7th. Because even though this is technically a separate war, it kind of feels like it's still part of that Hamas war that began back in 2023. So I'll show you what I have. So we're looking at BBC. It says, prior to launching Saturday's attack, their military spokesman issued a statement saying their hands were, quote, on the trigger for direct military intervention, end quote. If any countries joined the U.S.-Israeli strikes or the Red Sea was used for military operations against Iran. A few hours later, they confirmed that they had launched, quote unquote, a salvo of ballistic missiles, and attacks would continue, quote unquote, until the aggression against all resistance fronts ceases. In apparent reference to Israel's escalation of operations against the Hezbollah. Later on Saturday, the Houthis said a second wave of missiles and drones had been launched against Israel. U.S. and Israeli attacks against Iran have continued unabated, even as U.S. President Donald Trump says he has postponed a threatened attack on Iran's power plants if it does not reopen the strategic Strait of Hormuz to shipping by April 6th. All right, so I have a spreadsheet, like I said, where I'm trying to keep track of significant escalations in this conflict that began all the way back in 2023, although you could say it's three separate wars. There was some news today. So here it is right here. It's my newest item. Yemen. Well, I should put Houthis because there are other groups in Yemen. Houthis join Iran war. And I guess we'll see how intense that fighting is going to be, if it's going to be limited. There was some talk earlier. I saw this post and a few other ones talking about the fact that Saudi Arabia had entered the war. I guess based off of this news clip from Fox News, I don't know that they have officially entered the war. I couldn't find any news articles to confirm that. I think there were some indications that they're really close to doing it. So I'm going to wait until some news articles come out. There is this Times of Israel, but this is from a couple days ago, the 24th of March. Saudi Arabia and UAE inching toward joining fighting against Iran. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are reportedly moving closer toward actively joining the fight against Iran as the war in the Middle East threatens their economies. According to the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, the Gulf states are, quote unquote, inching toward a more active role after Riyadh allowed U.S. forces to use an air base within its borders. And so, if that eventually happens and it's more official, I will add it to this spreadsheet. But what I would like to do is just do a quick review of what I have on here. There's been a lot. It's been a long 3 years, and to me, I don't know about you, but to me, it doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to ending. I have a hard time seeing how exactly it's going to end. I would love your commentary and what you think is going to happen. Is this going to result in regime change in Iran, like completely? I know a lot of leadership has been taken out, but is Iran going to go back to the people? Is there going to be a big change of government? Or do you think that Iran will be defeated, but they'll stay in power? Like, what do you think is going to happen? I don't really know. Do you think that this has something to do with Gog and Magog? Do you think that this is that great war before the Messianic period? All right, so let's just go through what I have. I stepped away from this spreadsheet for a while. This is from another channel that I have. So it's not complete. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can think of other escalations to add to this. But let me show you what I have. So the Hamas war began on October 7th, 2023, the day after Hezbollah joined the conflict. Although I remember initially it was kind of limited. And then in that same month, on the 19th, the Houthis in Yemen joined the conflict, launched missiles and drones toward Israel. And then finally, on October 27th, Israel initiated ground operations in Gaza. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a lot of speculation as to whether Israel was actually going to do it, and it felt like it was just taking forever. But now looking back, it doesn't seem like it took that long, but there was a lot of anticipation, especially on X and other platforms. Okay, November 9th, Israel declares that Syrian militias have joined the conflict. November 19th, the Houthis hijacked the Galaxy Leader commercial vessel. And, they did this like video of it and posted it all over the place. December 4th, IDF pushes into southern Gaza. On December 22nd, Israel declared that Iraq militias have joined the conflict. And I think it was by this point that there were articles coming out saying that Israel was in a 7-front war. Let me show you how that was determined. So you had Hamas, number 1, Hezbollah 2, Houthis 3, Syria militias 4, Iraq militias 5, and then you had some skirmishes within Israel itself with Palestinians. So that was being considered a 6th front. And then the 7th front was Iran itself. Even though by this point, Iran had not actively or directly hit Israel, although, as we know, they later did. And then it really became a 7-front war. But it's interesting, because you think about Judaism and the number 7 and its significance. I think that wasn't lost on a lot of people. So a 7-front war. Okay. January 2nd, Israel took out Saleh Arari, the second in command of Hamas political office, in a rare strike in Beirut, Lebanon. January 11th, South Africa presented genocide case against Israel before UN court. Wow, I can't believe it was that long ago. The way that I perceive time, it's been kind of distorted. On that same day, United States and United Kingdom conduct combined operation on the Houthis. So I think that was the first time that the US had engaged in any sort of combat in this conflict. January 28th, Iran-backed groups killed 6 US service members in Jordan. US retaliates by striking dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria. Yeah, if I remember right, I don't know if that was a drone attack or a rocket attack. I think it was like a rocket attack. April 1st, 2024, Israel attacks Iranian embassy in Syria, killing 2 senior Iranian generals. And I believe that's what led to the next item. April 13th, Iran's first ever direct attack on Israel. 300 drones and missiles. I should have pulled it up, but there's some stunning footage. I think there's like 2 different videos that were taken from the Temple Mount, where it showed the Dome of the Rock in the foreground, and then it was nighttime, and in the night sky, you could see these Iranian ballistic missiles, and it sure looked apocalyptic. It looked like something straight out of the Bible, essentially. I think it's significant. There's people that'll say, oh, that kind of thing happens all the time over there. And yeah, I mean, before this point, when it comes to Hamas and Hezbollah rockets, yes. but Iranian ballistic missiles, no, that does not happen all the time. That was the first time that had happened. And in my mind, this was a very, very significant moment because my entire life, Iran has always been the big bad guy in the background. I was born in the 80s, and back then, I think pretty much the way I viewed it was the three main bad guys were Syria, Iran, and Iraq. And so Iraq essentially was dealt with the 2003 Iraq War with the US. Syria got caught up in the Arab Spring, and I think it was the Arab Spring, and also there was ISIS, but essentially there was a long civil war, and within the last couple of years, its government changed. But now Iran, I mean, it's like kind of like the last one as far as like a very threatening force to Israel. And so to see this happen, it feels almost like the climax to a movie. Not what happened in 2024, but it feels like that was kind of the beginning in a sense with Iran. As far as like direct back and forth between Israel and Iran and the United States and Iran. But kind of feels like we're at the climax of this movie. I don't know how you feel about it. Okay, May 19th, 2024, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and Foreign Minister Amir oh my gosh, Abdullah, whatever, die in helicopter crash, which I don't know. It's just interesting timing that happened just a few days after Iran's first ever direct attack. I don't know. That could have just been how it was. Maybe it was coincidence. I don't know. July 30th, Israel kills Fuad Shukr, Hezbollah's most senior military commander, in a rare strike in Beirut. And then July 31st, for me, this was a big one. I mean, I'm no expert in geopolitics or anything having to do with the military, but Israel kills Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas in Tehran. So the war at that time was mostly focused on Hamas and the Gaza Strip. And this was the leader of the other side of Hamas. And he was taken out not in Gaza, in the capital city of Iran. I remember that day. I remember looking through X and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. But it did. Okay, and then September 27th, that's when you had this like Israeli operation where somehow they had planted explosive devices in Hezbollah pagers and then set them all off at the same time. That stunned a lot of people. I didn't even know that something like that would be possible. I feel like there'd be like a really good chance that somebody would figure out what was going on before they could conduct the operation. But no, they did it. And then on the 18th, oh, sorry, I think I have those dates wrong. Maybe that's supposed to be the 12th. I'll have to go back and double check. But you had more electronic devices explode. I think including like fax machines and things like that. Let's see. I don't want this to go too long. September 21st, the farthest Hezbollah has fired into Israel since the start of the conflict, more than 30 miles south of the Lebanon border. We'll go to September 25th. First ever ballistic missile fired by Hezbollah at Israel. So up until that point, I don't think I knew that Hezbollah had ballistic missiles. I figured that they only had rockets, but no. First ever ballistic missile fired by Hezbollah at Israel. The first time a missile fired by Hezbollah has come this close to Tel Aviv. And then October 1st, and the final item that I have for that year, Iran's second ever direct attack on Israel. So 2 times in the same year. And then Now, this is where I probably missed a bunch of stuff and I kind of stepped away from this spreadsheet. But June 13th of 2025, the 12-day war began between Israel and Iran. And ultimately, it included attacks by the United States. On June 21st, the U.S. struck key Iranian nuclear sites, Fordow, and I think a couple others, if I'm not mistaken. But they struck those sites with B-2 bombers. Okay. September 9th, Israel strikes Qatar. 5 members of Hamas and 1 Qatari security official dead. And from what I read, it seems like that particular strike is what led to the ceasefire with Hamas. I might have to follow up with that as I kind of fill out my information on this channel and get things straight. But yeah, it seems like that's what happened. You had this strike, and that seems to have been somehow related to the ceasefire. The ceasefire, by the way, I just did a quick search on Grok. It seems that it's still holding. I think there were supposed to be like 3 phases. So you had phase 1 that went from October 2025 to January 2026. Phase 2 announced mid-January 2026 and ongoing as of late March 2026. This phase emphasizes demilitarization, disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups, technocratic governance of Gaza, further Israeli withdrawals, reconstruction, and an international stabilization force. Progress has been slow and disputed. It talks about the fact that there's been some low-level clashes, Israeli operations targeting Hamas infrastructure, in violation from both sides, which I'm sure that's all debatable, of course. Hamas reasserting control in parts of Gaza. So even though it's like a ceasefire right now, it's still not completely over. I don't know if it could really flare up. Really, I don't know if Hamas decided to just go back at it, like how much manpower that they have or what their capabilities would be. So I don't know. I guess it's kind of like a fire that's mostly fizzled out. Like it's now just down to embers and coals and stuff like that. But it still could reignite. Maybe, I don't know. If you know more, let me know in the comments. But back to the spreadsheet. Okay, February 28th of this year, that's when the Iran war started. And yeah, it is separate from the Hamas war. You could even say, I guess, it's separate from the 12-day war, but again, it feels like they're all kind of the same and related. It's kind of interesting that there's like 3 separate wars. The Hamas war, the 12-day war, and now this Iran war. But they're all very closely related. The Iran war, from what I understand, it first started with protests in Iran, and the regime really cracked down on the protesters, and they were killing a lot of people. And then Trump said, that they better stop and that help is on the way. And then help came, and then there were these negotiations that were taking place, and there were these news reports that were coming out saying like, yeah, we're making progress and we're starting to communicate, but but then just one day Iran was being attacked. And of course it's because, to me, from what I've read, it seems like Iran was never really serious about negotiating and just kind of stalling and stuff like that. So the Iran war began. It's still ongoing, and the Houthis joined today. Oh, I know another one I need to add on here, because I think there was like a start date or a beginning date when Hezbollah joined this specific war. Um, but yeah, so that's where we're at. Let's hope that this can all end and that there can be peace and that we can enjoy that 1,000-year period of peace, that whether you're Jewish or not, I think most Christian, Jewish religions, or Jewish and Christian religions believe that there's going to be a 1,000-year period of peace, and that's something to look forward to. But that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.